This video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 signs that you have shifted to a parallel reality and may not know it. This is something that so many people go through and they have no idea. Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you those 3 signs that you have shifted to a parallel reality and may have no idea of it even happening. The idea is that things look so similar to the way that they did before that we assume it is the same life track, it is the same type of parallel reality stream, when in actuality it is a totally different parallel reality. Now this is something that actually happens quite often, and it's something that quantum physics has been showing us, that we exist within so many different parallel realities. And the idea behind this, just to give this a little bit of an explanation before I talk about my personal experiences with this and things that you can know whether you've done it or not, is think of it like this. There's an infinite number of probable realities that exist. What we think of as movement, this of me going like this right now, is actually the me shifting through different parallel realities. Now think of each individual parallel reality as a separate frame. So this is a separate parallel reality, this is, and if there's one little change, there is a total change. Now think of this like a film strip analogy. This is the easiest way to understand it. If we have a film strip and we were to lay out and stretch out a film strip, we would see that even though when we play it through a projector, everything looks like it's very fluid, we could stretch it out and see that there's individual frames within each of those different frames of reality. Those are each individual frames that are totally different than the other ones. They may look very similar, but this is different than this is different than this. Every change is a total change. They are not the same. So in the same way, what we think of as time is actually the movement through different parallel realities, because at the fundamental base, the only moment that does exist is this moment right now. Really think about this. We've never actually experienced the past, because when it was the past, it was the now moment, just from a different point of view. But we can remember the past with our brain, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the same thing with the future. We can imagine what the future could be, but once again, that's the imagination. It's in the brain. When the future gets here, it'll be this moment right now. So experientially, we've only experienced this moment now, but the idea is that we are shifting through different parallel realities so quickly that it looks continuous. The idea is that we have memory, so we can tag all of these together. We can look at them in a continuity type way, so we assume that it is all one reality, when in actuality we are shifting billions of times per second through these different parallel realities. Now, if that's hard to believe, because when I first heard that, it was something I had to really let sink in. But think about it like this. If I'm right here right now, and there is one other variable in this parallel reality, like maybe a cat walking around, the cat moves around just a tad, then a different place, then that's a totally separate parallel reality. So there's billions of variables in our lives. It could be people walking around, they move a little bit different. And it could be me making different choices. So there's different ways that we move through parallel realities, but there are times when at a higher level of consciousness, we may shift ourselves to a parallel reality that is conducive of a different way of being. Now, the reason I say this is because I believe that we are immortal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. Just like quantum physics shows us, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It simply is. At a higher level of consciousness, I believe that there are times when something may happen where we shift ourselves to a parallel reality that is more reflective of what we want to experience. So let me share with you my experience with this. This is the first sign that you have shifted to a parallel reality and may not know it. Back in 2000 and I want to say 11 or 12, I was driving from one part of town to the other part of town. I was going over to a friend's house. And when I was on my way over there, I was getting into a left-hand lane. And in the left-hand lane, I was speeding up and getting ready to make a left-hand turn at a stoplight. Now, there was a median that was on my left, a big median that you couldn't even go over because there was like the sidewalk, but then there was like the big chunk over it. So I would have smashed into it if I would have gone like this into it. Now what happened was there was a huge semi-truck that was about 20 feet ahead of me. I was going and I was getting ready to make that left turn. I was probably about 400 or 500 feet away, and all of a sudden, that big semi truck starts to shift towards me, and it got closer and closer to the point to where I knew it was going to hit me. And what happened is a second later, I felt this jolt, and all of a sudden, I was about 15 to 20 feet behind the semi truck. Now, this was something that really just kind of jolted me. I had no idea, because why did this happen? I knew that something happened. Even then, in 2011 or 2012, I hadn't gone through a spiritual awakening yet. I didn't know this whole understanding of greater level of consciousness and how these things could happen. And even then, I knew that something had happened. I knew something had happened. I said, oh man, this is something that happened at a deeper level. I could feel it. And I just had this knowing. And from that point, I was 30 feet behind the truck. Everything was good. Otherwise, what would have happened if that semi-truck kept coming and merging, I would have had nowhere to go, because there was a car in front of me, a car behind me. I literally would have hit into the median and been crushed. So that's one sign. You know, there was one other sign as well. I wasn't going to mention this, but back in the day, I used to, as funny as it sounds, I used to drive a moped. You know, one of those little mopeds. There was this one time as well when I was at a stoplight, and I was getting ready to make a left-hand turn, and there was this car, this huge truck that just kept going. And it was a very similar type thing. I was getting ready to make a left because I had the green light to make the left. I didn't have a yellow light. I had a green, like the yellow blinking lights. I had a green light. I was getting ready to turn, and I started to rev it to go. It takes a second for it to pick up. And when that happened, this is years ago, when that happened, it was like something pulled me back to where it wasn't moving. It wasn't going. And once again, I felt a little bit of a jolt, and that was because then there was a truck that was running a red light that was going probably about 50, 60 miles an hour in a 35, and it went all the way through. Same type of thing. It would have for sure hit me, and I had this knowing that something happened at a deeper level. So these are two examples. Now, what is that sign? You feel some type of jolt or some type of break in continuity. A break in continuity is where there's really no explanation, and there's a jolt of one frame to another frame, and it makes no sense. But you know, maybe at a deeper level that something happened, and you just don't know exactly what that is. You know, our conscious mind may not understand it, but at a deeper level, there may have been something happen, because we are so much more far vast than we can imagine. We're not just our ego, we're much further beyond that. So has that happened to you? Maybe at some level that's happened to you before. If so, leave a comment in the description or in the comment box below. I'd love to hear if that happened to you guys. And that's something that is a sure sign that something has happened at a deeper level and that you've shifted to a parallel reality. Now, the second sign that you've shifted is actually looking back at a past experience or a past thing that was a prior agreed upon thing, and it has been totally changed. Now, this is what some people call the Mandela effect. This is when, and has to do with understanding time and memory. Now, when it comes to this, there may have been certain things in your past that you knew it was a certain way. Now, some people call this the Mandela effect when it comes to the Bernstein Bears and the way that it's spelt. Some people thought that Nelson Mandela died back in 1999 or something, and he ended up passing away much later than that. And it's funny though, because I was actually one of those people. I thought that he passed away long before, and then I found out later that he passed away much later than I thought. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's weird. And there was a big pull, because collectively there's groups of people that are like, no, he died in this time, and some people are like, no, he just died recently. Is it that it's just a confusing, or could it be that some people had the experience in the parallel reality of the past of it being different? Because the idea behind this concept is that the past doesn't exist the way that we think it does. In the present moment right now, the past is constantly changing, just like the present moment choices we make are changing the future probabilities. In the same way, the memory is just something that we think is real, but is actually constantly changing based on how we change in the present moment. Now, think about it like this. If there are an infinite number of parallel realities that exist, there was a parallel reality where Nelson Mandela died in 1999, and also where he died in 2008 or 9 or 10 or whatever when he did. these all exist right now. It's simply that we are perceiving of different ones depending upon our state of being, depending upon our choices, and depending upon what is relevant for us. Now, collectively, as far as the collective consciousness goes, as we change, because we are creating our own reality from our thoughts, our emotions, our state of being, our actions, we are doing that individually and collectively. Now, we're shifting through these different parallel realities, and we may recall different ones because we're all shifting in a somewhat of think of it like a bubble, like a collective manifestation bubble. Well, some of us will have a little bit different experiences, but as a group, we experience some level of relatability, but there's still some types of changes. Now, have you ever had this happen to you to where there was something you knew, like maybe there was a restaurant you went to and you knew that they always served a certain type of food. This has happened to me before. And then a year or two later, you go back and they're like, no, we've never served that food. And you're like, I've had that food many times before. I know that you used to. And then you think that maybe it was the waiter, the waitress, maybe she didn't work here then or he didn't work there. So you ask someone else later and like, no, really, I've been here like 6 years. We've never served that. And you're like, what's going on here? That is also something to where it's not that you're going crazy. It's just that simply it was a different parallel reality stream in the memory. And that's why it is hard to remember, or that's why it was a different track or a different parallel reality. So the key to this whole process that I'm sharing right now is actually that we're constantly shifting through parallel realities, whether we are aware of it or not. The question is not, can we shift to a parallel reality? It's how much aware will we be that we're already doing it already, that we're already doing it. So even as I go like this right now, I'm shifting. So it's like, not like, oh, am I shifting? Is it a sign that I've shifted? It's, is there a greater degree of change based on the continuity, based on my state of being, and what are the probability factors that come into play? One of them is the choices we make. I'll get into the third sign here in a minute, but I just want to share this because I think it's so powerful. The choices you make in the present moment are shifting you through different parallel realities. The choices you make, the state of being that you're in, the emotions you feel, all of these go into the probability stream of what you're creating. And the more you pay attention to your state of being, your emotions, and the actions you're taking, the more that you consciously will shift to the ones that you experience. So what I think personally is more powerful than even that of just the law of attraction is understanding quantum physics with parallel realities, and that we're constantly shifting billions of times per second because there's so many different variables at play, and that if we can do that consciously with a certain focus, state of being, and action, then everything in our life will change. Now, the third sign that you have shifted to a parallel reality is a little bit more extreme, but it's one that if you do, there's thousands and thousands of recorded people that have talked about this. NDE, near-death experiences. Now, an NDE is when somebody supposedly dies, and what happens is they go into a certain state of consciousness where many people will have certain very spiritual type experiences. Some people have very similar experiences to other people, some a little bit different, but nonetheless, a lot of people come back from NDEs totally different, as totally different people. They see life in a much more grateful way. They know that life is more of experience than it is something that's so real. You don't have to take it so seriously. You can have a little bit more fun and enjoy the process. A lot of people come back from NDEs like that. But one thing that also happens with near-death experiences is there are times that people actually die in that parallel reality, but then their soul has a choice. Their soul has a choice. Do I come back, or do I go on to a new experience? Because we're immortal spiritual beings living temporary human experiences. Now, many times people say that they had to come back. There was a purpose for them coming back. A lot of people say that they go in that state of consciousness that they feel so much unconditional love and bliss that they don't want to leave, but nonetheless they choose to come back. Well, what many times happens is there is parallel realities where people actually died and that was it. But there are also ones where what happens is someone died, and then what happens is their soul brought them back and put them in a parallel reality that looks so similar, but nonetheless they were able to live because they have more to experience in their life. This is something that actually happened to my grandpa. And he passed, this was when he was like 6 to 8 years old. He's 80 years old now, 84, something like that. And he's never really been afraid of death because when he was young, under 10 years old, I think it was like 6 or 8, he had an NDE, and he just simply knew. He went to some place where they told him it's not your time to go yet. He always knew that there was more to life, and that's why even now he's not afraid of death. And it's very interesting though, because it was a similar type experience where he did die, but then he was given the choice, or he was told there's more to experience in this life, and he was put in a parallel reality that was so similar that it appeared to be the same. But the idea is that we're constantly shifting through different parallel realities. So even though it appears to be the same, it is actually different, because the parallel reality still exists of where that person passed away. So these three things are signs that you may not know it, but you're shifted through a parallel reality. You're actually doing it right now as you watch this video. Even right now as I make it, I could go out on Final Cut Pro and stretch out the frames and be like, this is individual parallel reality, this is a different one, this is a different one. But they all flow very fluidly because of the way the frames work, because of the way the technology works. But nonetheless, they all exist right now. Think about it like time. I could stretch out these different parallel realities. They all exist right now. There's simply different perspectives. I could go like this, I could go like this, I go like this. So nonetheless, we're constantly doing it. The key is to do it consciously and in the direction that you want. So that's something that on this channel, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe below, because that's something I help people do. I help people to more consciously create the reality they want through either the law of attraction, through parallel realities, through understanding some deeper metaphysics. And what I do is I bridge all of these worlds together of personal development, spirituality, metaphysics, to help make it something that's practical and easy to understand. So what are those three signs again? The first sign is that you have gone through the process and you feel some type of jolt, some type of break in continuity that's kind of unexplainable. The second one is that you are going through some type of experience where your memory is different than you thought it was. It's not that you're going crazy, it's just that you remember a different layer in the parallel reality stream. It's something that still happened, it's just maybe not the most mass agreed upon thing. And then thirdly, what you do is you understand that if you have an NDE, a near-death experience, you may have actually died, but come back because there was more to experience in your life, to a parallel reality so similar, but nonetheless it's one that you choose to be in at some level. So if you guys haven't already, you can also follow me on Instagram. I do more live Q&As. If you have questions about this kind of stuff, you can feel free to comment on my newest post. I'll do my best to answer them. And you can follow me right here. I also do live Q&As quite often. And yeah, so with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the little notification gear next to the subscribe button so that you can see the daily vids that I do. And other than that, as always, peace, much love, and namaste.